We begin this morning with Arise News confirmation that Aiteo Eastern Exploration and Production Company has successfully stopped the blowout from Wellhead 01 of OML 29 in Nembe, Bayelsa State. This is coming weeks after the containment effort by the company and the firm contracted to cap the facility. Aiteo George has the details.
That moment when the workers at the site battled to cap Wellhead 01 of OML 29 belonging to Aiteo Eastern Exploration and Production Company. It looks like attempting to clean the Augean stables, where the men are willing to stay the course until the stubborn wellhead bowed to sustained pressure. Somehow, the workers acknowledge the fact that their efforts would not have paid off without a stroke of the divine.
Jesus, you know we do, I say you go with forever, Jesus, you know we do, I say you go with forever,
About 2 weeks ago, we were mobilized to sites. We came in here and we saw the situation. We had to attack it technically. We approached with our techniques. We were able to secure the well. As you can see, the well has been secured. The executive governor of this state, Bayelsa, he visited us 1 week ago and we gave him our word that in 1 week time, we are going to shut in the well, secure it. And you can see we have arrested the situation. The environment is safe.
Wellhead 01 belonging to Aiteo Eastern Exploration and Production Company has been capped. It has been a subject of concern, worry, anxiety, and perhaps controversy because of the volume of crude oil spilled into the environment. But today, it is good news to the company. It is good news to the people of Nembe that finally this wellhead has been killed. Perhaps what is expected of Aiteo is to conduct a remediation work and a cleanup exercise to give the people some form of assurance. Though the wellhead has wreaked havoc on Worikumakiri, flowing all the way to the fishing settlements and communities in proximity to the troubled spot, the people can now heave a sigh of relief. But no doubt they have to wait a little longer to sing redemption song. Aiteo George, Arise News.
All right, Tuna, finally the wellhead has been killed. The Christmas tree stopped bleeding out. Now time to count the loss and cost of this.
And do some repairs, some remediation, hopefully, and clean up that mess. Thank God for that, you know. And it took, what, a month and 3 days to finally, you know, stop the leak.
From November 5 to date.
Yes, it's such a long time. And the damage, I do sincerely hope, is not irreversible at this point. I do hope that the people living in that area have not already sustained, you know, long-term health challenges as a result of this disaster that happened there, and that the habitat can be restored as soon as possible. So I suppose those efforts will be ongoing, and remains to be seen how successful or effective they will be. And I do hope that the palliatives to those affected in the community do continue.
Well, Aiteo or Aiteo, you know, no matter how you pronounce it, they seem to have been making big capital out of this. You know, as of yesterday, they've been able to kill the wellhead. They've been able to stop the blowout. And I think we're supposed to jubilate and congratulate them. But no, that's not it. We're concerned that this went on for more than a month. The blowout at the Santa Barbara River, the OML 29 wellhead in the Nembe community was reported on November 5. That it has gone on for more than a month, and that in between, with all efforts made both by the federal government and the oil company, that nothing worked. The oil company said it engaged the services of Boots and Coots, and that at a point it invited Halliburton to move in, and that at a point it invited Clean Nigeria Associates to move in. The federal government also set up a joint investigating team that included the various stakeholders, major stakeholders within the oil and gas industry, including, NOSDRA, the Ministry of Environment, the local stakeholders, and all of that. But nothing happened because the Joint Investigation Team said that they could not access the spot on the Santa Barbara River and that no remediation could take place except the effort was made to kill the wellhead in the first place and secure it. Now, more than a month later, a lot of devastation in the area, although the company gives the excuse that this is a peculiar kind of a blowout because it's 20% crude oil and 80% gas. Whatever it is, what has been established is that this was a major threat to the environment and a major threat to the surrounding communities. And the damage went all the way from that Santa Barbara River up to the coastlines of the Atlantic. All the communities affected, would, as you pointed out, probably have to pay a price for this beyond now, far into the future, because there will still be need for follow-up actions. And I will come to that shortly. The oil company says, well, they responded early, they did this, they did that. I think that for the federal government of Nigeria, there are issues that would need to be considered. One, what happens to those unused, abandoned, if you like, reclaimed Christmas trees or the oil mining licenses? What is the integrity of some of those wellheads in the hands of those who have acquired them, with the multinationals trying to reduce the scope of their involvement within the Nigerian space? Two, how strong is the regulatory framework in making sure that the people of Nigeria in the Niger Delta specifically or elsewhere where there are mining and exploration issues do not continue perpetually to hold the wrong end of the stick and suffer for what is omissions, what are omissions on the part of government and other stakeholders. Three, Ovieteme George, when he was reporting the news, made a point that, the jubilant engineers from Aiteo and their contractors said that, they couldn't have achieved what they've been able to achieve so late because there was a stroke of the divine. Now, look, in this country, the most unintelligent thing that happens so often is that people put everything in the hands of God. Moral evils are committed by men. Omissions committed by men should not be something that you heap on the head of God. Even when the event happens, or when you try to do what you should have done originally, they'll say it's a divine factor in it. No, it's not. This was not an act of God. This was an act of negligence. And we hope that as part of follow-up steps, that the relevant Nigerian authorities will carry out an investigation and be able to establish who was negligent in this particular regard. And finally, we understand that there are follow-up steps to be taken. Clean up. Right? We understand that some other aspects of that Christmas tree will have to be secured. There will be need for isolation plugs. There will be need to put in non-return valves, so that this does not happen again. Okay, is Aiteo going to mobilize the capacity to do that expeditiously? It's not enough to come to the public and tell us, the blowout has been stopped and all of that. No, that's not enough, because from their own statement, we see that there are follow-up actions. We should not have a situation whereby those follow-up actions, including the cleanup, are ignored just because it is assumed that, the Christmas head, the blowout has been stopped. No, that's just the first step, the kind of devastation and assault on the environment in the Nembe community all the way to the Atlantic Ocean that we have seen. And for the relevant Nigerian regulatory agencies from NOSDRA and the NNPC, the DPR, and all of that, their roles must also be investigated, and that is, for me, the only thing that will make sense in all of this, not the celebration that I've seen.
All right. I think the very first thing after the killing of the Christmas tree should be a comprehensive and honest environmental impact assessment. Killing the well is one. Impact assessment is another one. Impact assessment that adequately caters for flora and fauna lost in that water body and the ancillary areas it spilled to. How many fishes died as a result of the spill? How many mangrove swamp have been destroyed for the next 30 years because the oil spill seeped into the mangrove and destroyed this cover? Because we forget over the years the calcification and carbonization that brought, these hydrocarbons we have in the Niger Delta region is because of the swampy nature of the mangrove over the years, calcified over millions of years. What is the impact on the environment? What is a viable cleanup? Also, health assessment. Isn't it time for you to take blood samples and data to collectively see impact of health assessment? It could be a randomized trial, so we know what we're dealing with in the future. There are many people that got cancer 10 years after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And something of that proportion happened in Nembe. Apart from that, compensation, the long drawn-out battle, there must be compensation. And as the company come out to say, we take responsibilities, it was our fault. Till date, we still have back and forth as regards even the situation of the wellhead. Was it a producing wellhead? Was it well capped? They said it was rust and things like that. Who was supposed to take care of it?
I said it was sabotage.
And no.
There's an allegation of sabotage.
Sabotage too? Mm-hmm. Okay, because people want to exonerate themselves. But what Nostra was saying is it had been abandoned for a while. The other question is, who secures other wellheads that have been abandoned that have some capacity of latency for production in them that could start rearing its ugly head again in the Niger Delta region? There are many wellheads like that are half dog that are a ticking time bomb. Who secures all of that? Those are the questions on ground. Most importantly, how will the regulations become stronger? And other areas this is currently happening. We're talking about Aiteo today, but in Sagana, there's a gas leak that has been going on for a while. There's another company involved who has talked about that, who has brought that to the fore. Have we solved that problem? So there are many questions. It's not celebration yet. It's not happiness yet. We need to have a honest, independent environmental impact assessment, health randomized trials. Let's even see the effects of this exposure on the blood sample of people, then to know what to plan for, remediation, cleanup, then we now start another legal battle. Because you see, this oil spill that lasted a month, the impact will last another 50 to 100 years.
Yeah. Ecocide.
That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Michael Wilson and Aaron Akejala give us updates on global business and spot activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. Moving on to Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. We've had vaccines helping things along very, very slightly. The wonder, though, is the whole point about Omicron is having a gentler market impact or not. Comments from Pfizer and Moderna suggesting a third shot would do the job against Omicron. But given that the United States and Europe are having trouble in vaccinating much more than about 65% of their population, if even that right now, you have to ask yourself whether or not Omicron is actually going to go away or it's going to play a further part in cases increasing into the year. So, having said that, Japan's and the Asia-Pacific markets traded basically mixed today, overnight, still assessing that risk from the variant. World Health Organization said it could change the course of the pandemic. I think we understand that, really. Japan manufacturing index outperformed, so doing quite well, actually, up 7.9%. It suggests that Japan is recovering after its Delta wave in quarter three. Of course, we have to go through that. The latest China CPI and PPI numbers pointed to little sign for the most recent past that inflation is still there. I don't believe it. I think that the rise in October PPI in China, up 13.5%, it's the highest since 1995, has got to tell you something about the fact that inflation is actually there, and it doesn't bode well for the next few months either, given how PPI tends to front up what's happening in the CPI numbers. There may be temporary relief for the equity markets in the slightly gentler figures, but underneath, I mean, I think you have to look at the property market there. We know that Kaiser suspended trading of their stock in Hong Kong. Why hasn't Evergrande done that? Many people are asking that this morning. A debt restructuring is not usually good for stock prices, and Evergrande's has fallen by 90%. However, let's major in on inflation and turn to China for that. Food price inflation is soaring there. Vegetables up 30.6%. Pork prices rose 12.2% in October, weren't too bad in November. But these sort of staples that are actually rising go along with the narrative from the world, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, which says that food prices are on the rise globally. US recap managed to maintain the sort of Omicron is weak narrative yesterday. Again, I mean, who knows? CPI figures out tomorrow. Markets suggest about 7%. Comments from the pharmaceutical industry that boosters will actually do something for Omicron actually helped everything. S&P up. But Jay Powell coming under increased scrutiny, really. Now, I know that we're going to be talking about the Fed next week, but if you look at how he's shifted his policy, this is what the markets are actually thinking about underneath. Expected to say it will double the pace of its taper, of its bond taper next week. But it'll be a fourth significant policy change under Jerome Powell. And with policy so unpredictable, it's very difficult for the markets to know how to react. So here's what happened. It came in, Fed committed to raising or normalizing, as it puts it, interest rates in 2018. Then it reversed that because of the pandemic in 2019. The pandemic changed all that, rate cuts, then expansionary monetary policy as well. That expanded the balance sheet by more than $4 trillion. How that's normalizing anything, I do not know. And then later that year, the Fed said it would step in the paradigm shift. It would now focus on jobs and jobs creation in its efforts to tame inflation. And it said it had made substantial further progress in that. But what I'm trying to say is that the markets are still sort of slightly, I don't think we're going to necessarily see the Santa rally as we often do before Christmas. I think the markets are mystified by what the Fed's actually doing, but maybe a little bit more of it will be revealed next week. As far as the UK is concerned, so it's Plan B now. Braces for Plan B, England braces at least for Plan B, and the new rules which start tomorrow include face masks in most public places. And COVID passes for some home guidance. But Boris Johnson, obviously, the shenanigans about that particular party in number 10, which I'm sure you know about, and also mounting backlash to plans by lots of MPs. But I thought that most of the news sources missed the most important part of what he said yesterday. I think, and he was questioned very closely about this, and he, as he always does, sidestepped it, but he did say that they may have to discuss. Now, this is an important twist in people's language here. We say may have to discuss, it probably means that you're going to. And it means that compulsory vaccination may be on the cards. Now, that would be a tremendous move in this country, tremendous problems legally. My view is that passports should be given to those if you haven't got them, then you don't get in. I have a yellow fever passport to get into Africa. I don't mind about that. I don't regard that as being intrusive at all. I trust the medicine, and I think more people should do that. But that's just a personal view. But that's where I think the discussion is going to go in this country, because Omicron is not going away. And so UK business, of course, has been saying that vaccine passports for larger venues, nightclubs, bars, and the rest of it will actually crimp their own efforts to try to regain profits in this what should be a very profitable period leading up to Christmas. As far as trade's concerned, it's now tit for tat. UK is threatening to put tariffs on more US high value US goods like whiskey, cosmetics, cosmetics and clothing. Doesn't sound much, but that's big from the United States. If you remember, the US tariffs on steel, they were imposed in 2018. UK was slightly isolated when the US and EU sort of rescinded all that, and now the UK steelmakers are saying that they're at a disadvantage. That's trade for you. Oil prices rising once again. Again, things appear to be getting slightly better. I mean, I believe it when I see it, to be honest. And Brent crude rose quite significantly to $76 overnight. So it's got to where the market thought the target was going to be a day early. And gold, well, risks remain there. Bullish investors are sort of might be returning to precious metals, but nothing's certain about it. It failed to overcome the sort of charts of these daily DMAs, daily moving averages, which again are a bit technical, but it does show which way the general situation in the market's going. Gold isn't getting out. And also, just finally, let's just talk briefly about Bitcoin. Can it cling on to its above 50,000? It got there again. Where is it going? The risk rebound we've seen in the markets, about the recovery. Does it make Bitcoin more attractive? I really don't know. It's volatile, but I just thought I'd note it in any case, just to say that should it hold above 50,000, then its next price barrier probably will be about $53,000 for those of you who are brave enough to invest in it. That's the global view.
I mean, that's the word, brave enough to invest in it. But two things, Michael, real quickly. I thought with the announcement by Pfizer yesterday that if you got 3 jabs of Pfizer, then you can actually use it to fight Omicron variant. I thought that announcement, based on lab trials, I should say, based on lab trials, I thought that announcement was going to affect the market, but the market didn't seem to move because everything now is moving as regards the Omicron variant. The market is moving in that way. Central banks are taking decisions based on the Omicron variant. The recovery of the economy has been hampered based on the Omicron variant. And secondly, after yesterday, I mean, I just want you to set in place the challenge ahead for Germany. A lot is ahead for Germany. A lot is at stake as regards the German economy. Will it still maintain that leadership role in the affairs of the world, most importantly in Europe at this point in time? You know, with a new leader brings new possibilities. Either ways.
Okay, well, we do Germany first because we did talk about it extensively yesterday. I still remain skeptical about whether he's going to be able to handle all those challenges. I think I was watching various reports about it because obviously the news services were doing their, end of Angela Merkel's reign and all the rest of it. I feel as though they finally got it. I think the most important things, not so much the modernization of German industry, which will have to happen, not just the massive debt that will have to happen, and they'll have to rethink how they think about debt, which you pointed out quite rightly yesterday. I think the most important thing is the relationship Germany is going to have with Russia, and the relationship it's going to have with China. And that's all I can say about that. I just feel as though those questions are the big, yawning open gaps in foreign policy. And given that the new foreign minister in Germany is a Green, and we just don't know what her attitude towards China and Russia may be. It may be that they don't have a close relationship with China and Russia because of their human rights problems, et cetera, et cetera. Politicians have to grow up, bring people to the negotiation table and do it. Whether Germany will do that, I really don't know. As far as the vaccines are concerned, again, I feel difficult about talking about this with you, actually, because you want some kind of opinion about it. All I can say is I look at the news wires every day, and I look at the markets every day, and it seems as though the position is changing. I think the bottom line, and I was trying to draw attention to this right at the top of my report this morning, is that if nations cannot get, if the rich nations cannot get more than 65% of their populations inoculated or vaccinated, whatever you care to call it, where does that lead? And does that mean that they will greedily take drugs away which could be used in poorer parts of the world? I suspect that probably will happen. And if that does happen, it means that these variants are not going to go away. So that's the real thing. We need to think in this world about we, and not me. Simple as that.
Okay, let's start with Germany. An important moment for Europe yesterday, and also it's significant in the sense that a former or a sitting incumbent finance minister has taken over now as chancellor. He has taken over the most important, perhaps, position in European politics, German chancellorship. given the importance of the German economy to the rest of Europe. Now, this is a finance minister who has been, associated with a number of policies. He, in fact, thinks that he's the architect of the follow scheme, short-term allowances for workers in Europe, and that the UK just copied his model. It was part of the Agenda 2010 under Schroeder, center-left, Chancellor of Germany. So he has a record. Now the question is, one, okay, he's also very strong on climate change. So it's not as if a German chancellor has emerged who is coming from nowhere. And then he has this baggage of this traffic light coalition. So maybe that's why he's strong on climate change. Now, what should we expect from him in terms of Europe and also the global economy? Is he going to continue with Angela Merkel's policies, or he will go in another direction? And then, of course, directly with the UK, this issue about the automotive industry and Brexit.
Sorry, the issue about what? What's the issue? The issue about what? So I didn't catch it.
Automotive industry with the UK. German car makers thinking that they should get a good deal with the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom not giving them the opportunity. Would that become an issue? So around Europe and also for the global economy, there would likely be implications and also issues in terms of continuity. That's one. Now, yesterday, the Prime Minister was in the House of Commons, where quite a very difficult moment for him, quite turbulent, because he went there with a moral dilemma over the December 18, 2020 party. Okay, Allegra Stratton has resigned, but many people think, this is just a diversionary tactic. If people in Downing Street do not respect the rules, why should anybody listen to any plan B? I think that's a moral dilemma. So my question is this. Is this the beginning of the end for the Prime Minister's tenure? As someone was asking in Heath, the columnist, was asking in the Telegraph today. And then again, how badly would the economy be affected, considering the fact that the UK economy is just still trying to deal with the fallout of what happened last winter? The measures that have been introduced now, they may not be as stringent, but I guess that certain sectors of the UK economy will be badly affected, particularly the nightlife businesses, travel, and tourism. What do you think?
Right, I'll take them one at a time. Let's do businesses first. As I said, businesses are very worried about what's going to happen because of the new restrictions in the run-up to Christmas. They're not going to make the kind of money that they do. Bars, restaurants, staff parties, and the rest of it will all be restricted, and I think that's going to be very serious. As far as Boris Johnson is concerned, I think that, again, I'm not a political commentator. I keep saying this to you. I'm not a political commentator. I just look at the markets. But what I'll say is that what you have to have, as far as COVID is concerned, you have to have common consent. Now, if you're seeing politicians, it doesn't matter at what level they are, behaving like they do in the West, what we call the Westminster bubble, then the people, the normal people, will not follow rules. They've been pretty quiescent so far, and they've done exactly what's going to happen. I think there is the big thing, as I said earlier in my report, is that there will be a debate about having mandatory vaccine. There'll be vaccine passports, which we have already, but I think there'll be a big debate about mandatory vaccines and so on. So I think that's going to be a very important thing. I would not like to be up. I don't care about Boris Johnson. If he's there, he's there. If he's not there, he's not there. Maybe this is a cause for resignation. He won't resign. But I mean, who knows? It's certainly dented his credibility. But would you like to be the person in charge of a country and saying, okay, we have fought since God was a boy to make the individual independent of central power? It's about a democracy and it's about votes. And then you bring in compulsory vaccinations. Now, it doesn't sound much, and it's not just about trusting the medics. but it's about actually saying to people, you will do this. And that's not something that happens normally in our society. I think there will be a tremendous debate about it if it were to happen. I think it's a long way away. I wouldn't care which party I was representing or what I was doing generally as far as the economy is concerned. I would not like to be the politician in charge of that, because it's a lose-lose situation. Everybody is going to hate you one way or the other. Those who believe in it won't think you've gone far enough. Those who don't believe in it would naturally start to talk. And when you start, I mean, I've had discussion. My son works for the government in a long way away from here, and he was saying that he was talking to a senior official who is an anti-vaxxer, and as soon as you start talking about them, they just shut up. There's no debate. That is the problem, and I think that's real something to face. As far as Germany is concerned, as I said earlier, I don't think that they're necessarily that well placed to be going into what's going to be a very, very fragmentary period for the EU. I think that the countries on the verges of it will be saying, hang on, are you going to increase interest rates because of inflation? What will this do to our economies, which are separate? Remember, as I said the other day, it only worked in the United States after political union. There is no political union in the EU. And Germany is very powerful. Germany, as we've said often in this program before, remembers the big inflationary problems that it had in those mid-war years. They don't want that kind of thing. But the debt brake is coming off, and it has been off for some time. But when the debt brake actually goes back on again, I think that's going to be a very important moment for the ECB. And I don't think it can afford to do it right now. I think this pandemic is going to last a long time. Or indeed, if the physical evidence of it doesn't, politicians of whatever colour they are will be saying, I think we better guard against this just in case. So I think these restrictions are going to go up. I think it'll crimp economic recovery hugely.
Well, it's good, Michael, that you brought in inflation with regard to Germany, where the inflation rate is about 6% in an inflation-averse nation. But I forgot to ask you, the inflation rate in the UK, would Plan B delayed because the UK pound fell to its lowest rate against the dollar yesterday? Does this have anything to do with the Plan B?
Well, yes, I think it has. So a lower pound would make imports more expensive and would make exports cheaper, right? So we get that. So in other words, yes, that would be inflationary. Do you know what it really depends on? And again, I was asking this question yesterday of various of my friends in the city and saying to them, look, what would Plan B actually mean for the economy? The problem is, it's thing. Some people think it will, for the reasons I've just said, increase inflation. It really depends how people spend their money. If they decide not to go out and save it, then nothing will happen, because the only price that people will have to pay are agony purchases like fuel and like energy and so on, which are themselves going up. And the annual rate of inflation in those is about 9%. So that's quite above the general rate, which is 4.2%. So we can play with percentages till the cows come home, can't we? I do not know the answer to the question. It really depends on what the populace does. And so far, we haven't really seen how this imposition of this Plan B has actually affected people, since it was only announced just after 6 o'clock yesterday evening. So I think there'll be a lot more about this over the weekend in the financial pages, and certainly a lot more opinion about this, and the opinion writers as well. And also people will be coming forward on social media to talk about it as well. So I think, if I may, it would be probably good to wait until maybe next week to talk about this, but certainly it will have an effect one way or the other. Depends whether we stay home or not.
Well, thank you very much, Michael.